All right, so welcome to the reality of real world asset tokenization. Um, so thank you very much for joining the class. This is actually something that I had the privilege of hosting at the Cardano Summit in Dubai a few months ago, and many people attended. I was flattered because it just the support is fantastic. I mean, I just love how supportive this community is. And so, yeah, the Cardano Foundation was kind enough to give me an opportunity to do this class through this web series. So let's kick off. And so I think you can see my screen here. And so this is the presentation. This is the same presentation that I used in Dubai. So you won't be missing anything. And so really, this is not just about real world asset tokenization. It's not just about kind of the what's under the hood of it, or the logistics, or the semantics of it. It's more about how real world asset tokenization is and I believe this strongly, and this is why zenGate is really kind of keen on pursuing this area. I believe this is the future of our industry. I believe that this is the future of the blockchain industry. This is a chance for us to really utilize the technology that we have today and do some good with it, and fix problems now. That it's a technology that is a solution to an existing problem, not a solution looking for a problem to solve. So it's just very exciting that also the tides of this new market that is approaching us are really heavy on RWAs. So it's really exciting for myself to see, and the team to see, because we've been really involved in this for almost 2 years now, building Palmyra, building the tokenization protocol, winter protocol. Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to kind of showing you not just what it takes to tokenize assets, but how to really build a project around tokenizing assets, and how to really build a project that is meant for the mainstream, because what we need is mainstream adoption. This is what it's all about. So let's go to the first slide here. So as I said, for those of you who might not know what my company zenGate is about, our flagship product is called Palmyra. And so Palmyra, in essentially is a tokenized commodity DEX. And simply put, the purpose here is to connect commodity producers and buyers around the world that are just looking for a much more straightforward, non-siloed, non-gate kept, easy way to transact and to really utilize a world market. And so again, this is all about empowering the producer, empowering the buyer, which is, I think, one of the core principles of what the blockchain movement is about. Is basically empowering the individual and giving them the tools that will help them succeed, and really giving them the opportunity, the way to be included in the opportunity to succeed. Yeah, just going to the slide right here. So just a little bit of myself. So my journey in the blockchain space started with input output. And so I was one of the first members of IOHK, which then became IOG. I joined in the earlier part of 2016, when the company were just getting started. And so myself and the team were instrumental in the pre-sale of ADA, as well as launching the Cardano protocol. I myself have over 20 years experience just in the IT field. I've been in the IT field since the 90s. Yeah, they're just I've been, it's like that song by by Frank Sinatra. I've been a developer, I've been a business developer, I've been in CTO, I've been just I worn many different hats in the IT field. Yeah, like I said, I was a developer for a long time, for almost 20 years. I also was a was the manager of business development for Input Output when I was still with Input Output. I'm also an advisor to the Ergo Foundation, which many of you already know, just simply because Cardano and Ergo are very synergistic and very symbiotic, and especially now with the propagation of Rosenbridge, which is a very exciting technology. And just a little bit about myself. I am a father of a rambunctious 3-year-old. I have I have many pets. I have 4 dogs. I have 2 cats. I have sugar gliders. I have a hedgehog, geckos, rabbits. So I love animals. My wife tolerates them. Yeah, this is a little bit about myself. Oh, and of course, one last thing is I live in Japan. And as you know, Cardano started in Japan. So this is how I came across Cardano, because I was kind of in the place where it was born. All right, moving on. So this is a really important piece, that every single project that is, I mean, and this is real world asset tokenization, especially because you really aren't dealing with some sort of a hypothetical construct. You're dealing with something real. You're dealing with something that already exists, that already might have existed for hundreds of years. Like, for example, commodities. Commodities have been around for thousands of years. Commodity trading has been around for also a millennium. So for to say that we are here to change the way these things work is a really bold statement, and you really have to back it up with a sprinkle of reality. And so essentially, when you start a project that is RWA, especially RWA based, right, where you're tokenizing a real world asset and you're basically trying to kind of boost what already exists, you have to ask, why does it exist? And by it, I mean, why does your solution exist? So you have to be absolutely sure that, as I said, the solution is not it's a solution for a problem, not a solution looking to solve a problem. Because solutions that are looking to solve a problem for the mostly will always fail, because it's just a backwards way of doing things. You have a problem, you get a solution for it. You don't look for a solution just because. And this is actually something that is prominent in the blockchain space, and this is something that I hope that we start getting away from, because it will eventually hurt us, and irreparably, I believe, if we keep building solutions that are really don't have a go-to-market strategy, they don't have a real adoption strategy that's grounded in reality. And so let's go to the right here. And so how do you perform this litmus test on what you're building? So first of all, and this hurts when you actually come up with this wonderful idea and you think that this is going to change everything. You really have to be objective and say, can this problem be solved with existing tech? This is actually also a prominent issue with the blockchain industry, because many think that everything can be solved with blockchain, just more blockchain, more cowbell, more blockchain. Not everything needs to be solved with blockchain. There are specific use cases where blockchain is the optimal tool to use, but it's not always the most optimal tool. It is not always the way to go. And you have to really look into and really have to do your research and say, can the problem be solved with existing tech? And that goes to the next point here, and that is, are you forcing Web3 on them? So again, are you a solution looking for a problem? Are you putting blockchain in there just because you want to have a blockchain use case? Does it really need blockchain? And this is very difficult to accept, but this is something that you have to start with, because this is something that will, if you pass this test, it'll make your project that much stronger. And the final part here on the right says, are you reinventing the wheel? Does this already exist? Again, this goes through with everything else that's here. So many solutions are not really solutions. They're just kind of tweaks. And then a lot of times as a founder, and this is something that I know from personal experience, you're excited about it, and then you start deluding yourself. You're starting to think, yeah, I'm actually, no, this, it's really needed. Yeah, but the id on your shoulder says, well, yeah, wait a second, but it already exists and it works really well. It already works. Just some things just work already pretty well. Like there are technologies in the commodity trading sector in with existing commodities exchanges. They just work. They already work pretty well. Yeah, of course, there's a little bit of improvement that can be made. You can always digitize it a little more. You can always streamline it a little more, make things portable. But really, it's not going to be like a paradigm shift. There's going to be just a little tweak, right? And so if you're starting at a base layer, right, and you're really looking for this big solution that you can then grow from and to create a real use case, you have to ask yourself all these three questions. Can the problem be solved with existing tech? Are you forcing Web3 on them? Does it really need blockchain? And are you reinventing the wheel, meaning that does this solution the solution already been solved, and you're just trying to talk yourself into thinking that, oh no, what I got is better. So again, this is a litmus test. And once you pass this test, you can move on to the next part here. So once you say, okay, yes, I have objectively explored the use case in this RWA tokenization project that I have. I want to tokenize this particular commodity or this particular item. And yeah, it's needed, right? It would benefit from being tokenized. It would benefit from whatever tokenization is going to take. Is it in the case of Palmyra, the tokenization is actually utilized for a data chest that has documentation attached to it, that has certificates attached to it, that has credentials attached to it, that is basically, it's needed for commodity trading. Other solutions might be just tokenization of a warehoused commodity or warehoused product that can then be tokenized, meaning that, okay, so you have a warehouse of, say, grain, and you tokenize the grain by saying that, okay, this is tokenized. I have a warehouse receipt for this grain. It's been assessed at this particular amount of money. So now I can issue tokens that will represent fractional ownership of this grain, and then the owner of the token is basically can then speculate on the price of the grain, whether it's going to be in the form of a future or forward contract, or just just plain holding the token and hoping the item goes up in value. There's other ways to tokenize RWAs, and of course, yeah, this is what the industry is all about. RWA tokenization is a really, really wide field. It's not just one thing. It's many, 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 many things. And so you have to really be specific about exactly what is this use case tokenizing. Just tokenizing, just for the sake of tokenizing, is not going to work. You really have to think about it. So when you pass this test, you start thinking about your market. Okay. And so the first and foremost thing is, where does your solution make the most sense? So where do you deploy this? And this is something that has actually been studied and developed by Continuum Loop, and that is the minimum viable ecosystem. So where is the minimum viable ecosystem going to be deployed? Where's your entry? And who are the users? Okay, so basically looking for and you always really want to think about lowest barrier of entry and lowest hanging fruit. Because if you just jump directly into a super complex problem and you haven't had the experience of dealing in that sector, you will, it's going to be really difficult because you still have to go through this learning curve. But if you really think about it and really deploy the solution where it makes the most sense, even if it's too easy, well, if it's too easy, that's great. Then you can do it. Just do it. And this is what these items on the right basically say. These are kind of the mantras of it. What is oh, well, it's a bit of a misspell, but what is your path of least resistance? That's what it's supposed to say. What are your risks and how does it scale? And so risk assessment is very, very important here because you really have to, it really helps you face reality. Okay, so what if I don't succeed? What if I partially succeed? What if I have to pivot? What do I have to take into account as far as what I said before, the learning curve, the adoption curve, the resistance curve, because there are going to be many industries are going to be resisting RWA tokenization because they already are used to doing things the way they're doing them. And you're just going to have to really, really put in the legwork and explain to them, yeah, this makes things better for you. And again, how does it scale? So essentially you deploy in a region, right? And you pick a use case. And this is actually also a mistake that is commonly made. You pick a really niche use case, and then once this use case is actually expanded as much as possible, you feel, well, I want to go further. But you didn't think about scaling in the beginning, and so hence when you get to a point of maximum of critical mass, basically, where you want to expand even more, that's going to hurt because that's going to be something that you've entered that is not scalable beyond this point, which you're not ready to give up to be happy with. And so this is why it's always important to think about scaling from the beginning when you basically outline your go-to-market strategy. And so this is very important on the bottom here. So does it matter to thousands or billions? And this is something that I've said and I mentioned several times because this really rang really powerfully with me. And so this was actually, I didn't say this. This was said by a gentleman that was giving a keynote before me at the Crypto Expo in Dubai last year. And so what he said was that the problem with the industry is that we are creating solutions for thousands, but we want them to be adopted by billions. And we need to create solutions for billions to be adopted by billions. And so what you have to think about is, and it's okay to make a solution for thousands, but you have to be ready for that. And you have to understand, what is this solution going to do? Is this a solution for hundreds, thousands, millions, or billions? And that's where you also have to really think about scaling. That's what is going to help you with scaling. And then you basically compare, okay, so my entry point, how can I scale from that? How do I expand from that entry point? Like, for example, when we were dealing with T, right? We knew that T alone wasn't going to be, tokenization of T alone wasn't going to kind of give us this new generation, this new era of commodity exchange that we're looking to build with Palmyra, with the Palmyra platform. So we thought right away, okay, so once we scale up enough with T, or once we're scaled to where we're happy and we want to expand, how do we expand from that? And so that's when we started thinking about the modular design. It's when we started to think about, okay, so how do we pivot to similar commodities that can be tokenized without a huge barrier of entry and without a huge change in our onboarding strategy? So again, very, very important to think about these things in the beginning and not later on, and just kind of trying to fix holes in a leaky dam. All right, so moving on, you got your go-to-market strategy. You're good to go. You have made the assessment. You're happy with it. You are objective. You are you give critique to yourself. You're a very you're one of those people that knows how to take criticism and to build on it, and so you're ready to move on. So the next iteration of tokenization of commodities, as well as other, but this is very much specific to tokenization of real world assets, and especially commodities, and that is knowing your community, KYC, but KYC, know your community. Because many projects, they kind of build build solutions behind closed doors. They build it in the room somewhere, and then they come out and they say, here it is, use it. And people, first of all, that's condescending. I believe that for me to do that, for zenGate to build something in a silo and then come out and basically shower it on somebody like I'm bringing them a divine gift, is an ignorant way of going about things. You have to always be objective, not subjective, and you have to know your community. So the first thing that we did, and the first thing that you always really need to do after you develop the core of your solution, is go to the community and workshops. That is a very pivotal thing, because you get to learn from your community. You get to really learn and hear before you start putting in all this time and money and energy into actually building the solution, taking it to market, advertising, media, all these things that cost money. You go to your user base and you listen to them and you say, okay, so if I have this solution for you, what do you think of it? Is this going to be something that you use? Or do we have to tweak it for you to be able to use it? Because, okay, so this is what we want to do. Now, this is the problem that we believe that you guys have. And so, is this solution going to fix the problem for you? So in the case of tokenizing tea, we workshop with the tea producers in Sri Lanka, with the farmers, with the factory owners, and some buyers as well, and some intermediaries like brokers. And we workshop with them in several regions of Sri Lanka, and we basically just did Q&As. We did information gathering. We explained the solution to them, and we listened to them. We weren't really talking about blockchain. We weren't really talking about, oh, we're doing RWA tokenization. We were talking about utility. And this is also a big part of RWA tokenization. And I believe that we really need to focus on is, and this is not just for RWAs, but across the industry. I think we need to focus on utility over technology. And so essentially, yeah, so the next step, or not the next step, but another important part here, and this is also here listed here, is local partners know the place better than you. You will, if you're entering a jurisdiction that you don't know, or don't know enough, or haven't done business in, and you want to tokenize an asset in that jurisdiction, face the fact that you don't know enough. You just don't. And it will take you a long time to really understand that market. So what you need are local partners that understand the parts of the market that you need specialists in. So you look for local partners and you utilize those partners to really understand the landscape of your minimum viable ecosystem and what's being deployed into your minimum viable ecosystem. So the next part is communicate utility, abstract the tech, and just communicate in general. And so this is what I was speaking on just a few minutes ago. I believe that this is the way to mass adoption. I believe that this is very important for RWA tokenization. If we have to abstract the tech and put utility first, we have to show, if you tokenize this RWA, this is the utility that basically makes things better for you. This is the utility that will help you do better business. And you just subtract the tech, because most of these people aren't going to care about the tech. They're going to care about the business. Yeah, and just you remember that you have to put utility first, business first. If they want to know about the tech, yeah, you tell them about the tech. But for the most part, they're not going to care. Not really. This is an example that I always bring up, and I'll keep bringing it up. It's basically the Visa card, right? You think about the Visa card, and so you think about how many people use the Visa card. This is something I did at the master class. I said, okay, can I see a show of hands of who uses a Visa card? And so pretty much everybody raised their hand. And then I said, okay, now let me see a show of hands of how many people know how the Visa network works. And so of course, maybe 1/5 or 1/4 of the room, because we still have specialists in the room, knew how the Visa network works. And then the next question is, how many care? I mean, do you really care? And I know this kind of sounds counterintuitive, but the average person is just not going to care. They just care about the utility. They care about the business. That's it. And we have to phase that. And we just have to give them the most solid tech possible, knowing that they need it, knowing that they need this tech to be secure and dependable. But it's not necessarily going to be something that we're going to get a pat on the back about. We're going to get a pat on the back about making their lives easier, bringing utility to them where utility is needed, and solving a problem they have. So the next part is, again, as you see, this has got a very common theme, and this is the community probably knows better than you. Oh, this is went too far. The community probably knows better than you, but they know their problems better than you. Again, this is all about listening to the community. It's all about listening to the producers or the holders of these assets that you're tokenizing. We listen to the producers. We listen to the Sri Lankan tea producers. And we had to actually tweak our solution somewhat. And this is where the last part comes in about course corrections. And you will have course corrections. You will have to. You have to change course a little. Not completely. If you went through the first several steps that I outlined earlier, but there will be course corrections. There will be adjustments, and just don't be stubborn about it. Be objective about it, and think, okay, if your user is telling you that I would rather do this, you might not necessarily want to deliver exactly what they said they want to do, but you have to deliver it in the construct of what can be built. But that still would mean that you need to shift. You need to shift course to accommodate that the user requirement. And so that's where it's important to do. You have to do this. You have to course correct. You have to be able to have that to have the test. So let's go to the next slide here. And so, okay, so right, so you workshopped, you took your notes, you did your planning, you did your documentation, the preliminary high-level documentation. You have a roadmap of building a product, of building an RWA tokenization product. And like I said, maybe sometimes you don't really need to build a whole platform. You just need to tokenize some things and make a crypto asset that represents them, and then utilize existing platforms for that. Sometimes you have to build a dedicated platform for this RWA because of say various regulatory landscapes. Like for example, in the case of gold. To effectively trade gold, it's a highly regulated trade, so you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for having to comply with regulations, and to building a platform or transacting on a platform that meets those regulations. And so when you have to build, and when you do build, you really have to concentrate on the UX. It's all about the UX. If the UX is too convoluted, if it's too complicated, if it's too just crazy, people won't want to use it. Mainstream will not want to use it. And this is something, again, this is it's a common issue in our industry, and this is something that I know we're all trying to be better at. And so UX UI is very important. This is actually the first thing that we built on Palmyra. Was we designed the UI and the UX even before any code was written for anything, even the Winter protocol. We designed the UI and the UX to really understand how the system works. And really that helped us visualize, and that really helped us expand the vision. And so when we actually, what we did was we actually brought that UX to the producers and showed them and said, okay, so this is what it's going to look like. And this is a bit of a kind of a shortcut to really be able to interact with your user base on a much more robust level. So yeah, so basically, you build the UX, or we build the UX. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to, but UI UX is very important. So first of all, it has to lower the barrier of entry. It has to be familiar to them, because a lot of times when you tokenize RWAs, as I said before, these might have been items or commodities, or whatever you're tokenizing, that has been transacted and traded and bought and sold and utilized for hundreds or thousands of years. And there's a trade attached to it. There are standards attached to it. And you cannot go in there and just say, guys, forget all of this. That's how you're going to do it now. So you always think about lower barrier of entry if you want the existing industries to utilize your product. Hybrid solutions work the best. And so by that, I mean more on the technical side. So again, not everything needs blockchain. We need to be able to utilize Web 2 and Web 3 and and just everything together. And you really use the blockchain where it's needed. And again, in the case of Palmyra, the blockchain was needed in traceability. It made sense in credentials and certificates. Right, but say we don't really need to do all the logistics for the blockchain. We do that just in a regular way. Not all payments have to be blockchain based, because, well, again, regulatory landscapes and just customer acquisition is harder, because a lot of people just still, the mainstream doesn't really utilize cryptocurrencies for payments. So you have to accommodate fiat payments. So this leads me to my next point here, is offer options instead of restrictions. So don't say you can only pay in crypto for this asset. You can only trade it on this one platform. This is gold, but this is you can only trade it this one way in this one thing, and no further. And of course, yeah, like I said before, sometimes you have to build a platform that really is intended for transacting in the real world asset. However, that platform always has to be it has to be adaptive. It has to be portable. It has to be able to integrate with existing architectures to be able to have access to a wider market. So offer options instead of restrictions. Give them options. Tell them, okay, we can do it this way. We can do it this way. How do you think it'll be easier for you? Again, it all goes back to the workshops. This is and the next point is again, something that I see a lot in the industry is we get frustrated and say, well, people are just stupid. They need this, but they're just too stupid to understand they need this. Well, most of the times they're not dumb. You're naive. You're naive about really the need for this particular technology on a wider level, and the rate of adoption you thought it was going to have in the way you deployed the technology. And so you have to adapt to it. You have to understand that. You have to say, okay, maybe we need to take a different approach. And again, going back to what I was saying about utility over technologies, what under the hood doesn't matter to the mainstream, get over it. We have to, because I know all of us are really excited about the tech, and that's okay. And in our circles, it's huge. We can have these conversations. We can have debates, but the mainstream is just not going to care as much about technology as we do. And for the most part, 90%, 95% of the mainstream is not going to care about the tech. They're going to care about utility. So utility first. Utility always comes first. Deployment. So again, this is very important when you're dealing with RWAs because, again, dealing with already established markets, already established traits. So really, a rollout roadmap is very important here. First point is focus proof of concept in a specialty sector. So again, this is not the only way to do it, but this is a very good way to do it. So you got an RWA solution. Pick a sector that you think is going to be a low barrier of entry, low hanging fruit, like I said before, and just deploy it on that scale. Succeed on that scale. Don't try to conquer the world all at once. You deploy it there, you learn your lessons there, and then you can expand. What we did was we rolled out our solution first in the specialty and artisan tea producer sector, just because it was just a lot easier to get into, a lot less regulation, a lot more access to what we needed to do. They had a lot less access to markets and to all the services that the big boys have. So we can try all these different solutions on them, right? And bring them all these solutions that maybe the big boys will take time to adopt or adapt to and adopt in their technology, in their workflow. The next step is work with regulators. And again, I know many of us don't like the man. We're libertarians. We're all about that, and that's fine. But here's the fact: if you want to roll out a mainstream use case, if you want to deal with RWAs, many of them are regulated. Gold is regulated. Grain is regulated. Tea is regulated. Coal is regulated. All these things are regulated. So you have to work with regulators. You have to make connections. You have to build relationships, and you have to understand the regulatory landscape of the jurisdictions you're deploying into and the world world that you're deploying into. And so also know, okay, so if I want to go from this jurisdiction to the next one, what are going to be my regulatory concerns in that jurisdiction? Okay, and how do I have to tweak my tokenization to be able to utilize in that jurisdiction? This is actually something that Endmaker is really taking a lot of time and exploring, and this is very important. Be transparent. Again, this is not just for everything, but especially here, be transparent about what you're building. You don't want to have a bunch of people just basically, butt heads with you because they don't know what you're building and they think you're going to put them out of business. You don't want a bunch of people think you're going to put them out of business. Even if some things might put some of their business away or might make them need to shift to a different way of doing business. Show the kingmakers the benefit of cooperation. Again, it's almost the same thing here. There already are kingmakers in a lot of these fields. If you want to have a path of least resistance, work with them, not against them. Not all of them are evil. Some are, not all. Make your own assessment, make your own ethical assessment of if this person is the type of person you want to deal with. It's not black and white. It's a very nuanced thing to really be on the ground and really thinking about adoption. So kingmakers, see what they're about. Try to not butt heads. Things will break, be ready. They will. They absolutely will. Nothing is like a Swiss watch when it comes to tech, and never will be. So be ready for that. Have contingency plans, and don't panic. That's very important. So moving on here, I think, so I think this is actually kind of like the gist of it. the gist of my presentation here. And I mean, as I said before, it is a nuanced thing. It is very nuanced. It is about understanding your ecosystem. It is about understanding your your use case. It is about all these different things. And I think it's very important to really stay objective, not subjective, pragmatic, and to really kind of focus on what's important. And what's important is rolling out a solution in the best way possible to have the most impact. The reason why I love RWAs is because the impact. You make impact. This is powerful impact that you can have to make things better for people. All right, so I think that I'll stop sharing this for now, and let's get into some questions here. There's a few Q&A questions. Okay, so all right, so here's a here's a question. I would love to know how do you ensure compliance with international regulators and standards when tokenizing and trading RWAs? So again, it depends on the RWA. It depends on the jurisdiction that you're in. And I mean, there is no clear answer to this. What you need to understand is you have to really set your sights on the jurisdiction that you're going to roll out in, right? So it can be worldwide in many cases. It has to be region specific in many cases, and then you basically explore in those cases. You get some legal help. You say, okay, in this particular case, and there are legal experts that can help you with this. In this particular case, in this particular jurisdiction, what things should I watch out for? What licenses do I need? What is the best jurisdiction for me to start from, essentially as well. And this is something that can be answered. This is something that you have to do some exploration about. Sometimes you have to go to the regulator and you have to say, okay, what do I do in this case? Sometimes it is, I forgot what the legal term for it is. It's basically, if it's not illegal, it's legal. So in some jurisdictions, like in Georgia, for example, they have a style of law which basically says that if it's not illegal, like if the government didn't say it's illegal, then it's legal for you to do. So you don't really have to deal with a lot of the regulation or kind of gray zone, right? So that makes it easier with many things. So again, it's not a clear cut case for every single one, but what you have to do is you have to pick your jurisdictions. You have to do due diligence on the jurisdiction. It really depends on what you're tokenizing, and you really have to seek experts. You really have to find experts in the field that will help you with understanding the regulatory landscapes. All right, so let's see another one. So here's another one.
Do you want me to ask you the questions?
Well, it's okay. Can you actually see the questions when I click on them?
I cannot, no, but maybe because I'm not in the audience.
Okay. Well, it's okay. I can actually just read out the question. So how can Ionis asks, how can one profit from creating a useful dApp or tokenizing an asset? You sell the app to companies, or do you add fees? If you add fees, how are people going to use the project instead of free but centralized ones? So this is, again, there is no clear answer to this. The answer here is that it is really, it depends on you. It depends on what your business model is. If your business model is to build dApps and sell dApps, then yeah, I mean there are different ways of monetizing that. Yeah, there can be transaction fees, can be royalties that then you can license the dApp out, and somebody else can utilize it. You can create white label solutions that can be utilized by other platforms that can essentially then utilize a revenue structure that goes back to you, and or you can just, they can pay you a license fee and utilize your technology. Or yeah, you can just build something open source, and I'm a big proponent of open source, and just build your business around there. Most of the time is going to be all about your ecosystem, and all about the community, and all about the transactions. So yeah, there's going to be a transaction fee most of the time. Does it make sense for the business? Does it make sense for them to do business on your platform? And I mean, that's it. Just, it's all about the business. All right, so let's go to the next question here. Okay, so here's a question from anonymous. Okay, can you discuss any partnerships with governments or institutions in emerging markets to deploy your technology? Yeah, so specifically with Palmyra and with zenGate, what we do is called the middle out approach. And so what that means is, when we enter a jurisdiction, especially for commodities, we don't really we don't try to kind of just go out on the street and scream at the top of our lungs and say, use this, or spend all this money on advertising or whatnot. What we do is we go to associations, we go to groups, we go to industry circles that are already established, and we speak to them and we get them on board. So in the case of Sri Lanka, the first entity we partnered with was the Tea Factory Owners Association. So the Sri Lankan Tea Factory Owners Association is comprised of the bulk of the tea industry, and so this is about 500 factories that are in this association. And this is not a regulatory body, but this is this is the largest association of factory owners, and this is basically a big chunk of the industry. We made a partnership with them. We signed an MOU with them, and we started working with them. This is actually who we workshopped with. And so this was really instrumental in creating a solution that then they were happy to use, that they were excited to use. Another entity that we've had some kind of conversations with is the Ministry of Agriculture and Plantations in Sri Lanka. Again, another regulatory body that is important, maybe not necessarily to have an agreement with, but to have cooperation with, in order to be able to understand the regulatory landscape, and to really just be transparent about what you're doing, because they can't say, oh, we didn't know you were going to do this. Yes, you did. We were very transparent about it. Here's the record. That's it. Yeah, so yeah, it's and it's all about kind of finding that lowest hanging fruit. And there's always going to be associations, there's always going to be ministries that are looking to do business if you bring in a useful solution. Yeah, so don't be afraid to approach these bodies. They're not, a lot of times they will be very receptive, especially in emerging economies. This is why I love emerging economies, because they're a lot more receptive, and there's a lot more there's a lot more impact that you can have. Okay, so let's move to the next one here. Okay, so it's another one from anonymous. Is the regulatory environment affecting the range of assets we could tokenize? Yeah, it is. There's still regulations. Some are heavily regulated, some are not. For example, in case of, say, pharmaceuticals, in the case of biochemicals, in a case of nuclear materials, in a case of even things like crude, there are a lot of regulations, and that will affect the way you can transact, the way you can tokenize. Some places just really don't understand tokenization, you have to go in a different way of construct, and tokenization is not something that has happened just with the rise of the blockchain. This has been around for a long time. In fact, our most recent advisor that came on board, our chief of commodities, who actually was the chief of commodities for the UN, Lamont Rattan, he was thinking about tokenization 20 years ago. So the concept has been around. It's just finally the technology caught up to it. And and this goes back to working with regulators. So sometimes, it's not going to be allowed, or it's not going to be clear, and you might need to go to a different jurisdiction to do business. Sometimes you just work with the regulator. Just in the case of Georgia, for example, the Bank of Georgia in 2018 told us that they don't want to touch anything that has to do with crypto or crypto assets or blockchain, but they're kind of monitoring it. Fast forward to 2021, and they had a summit about creating a stable coin that they wanted to use as a currency, not a central bank digital currency, but just a national currency. Big improvement, right? Only a few years, but a big improvement from we don't really touch it to, hey, let's make a crypto asset, and we'll do it, and we'll regulate it. So yeah, just a matter of it's a matter of time with some. But again, it affects it. Like, for example, in the case of Twin, there are regulations that they have that they had to really be mindful of, and they really had when they really did a fantastic job really kind of exploring with the gold trade. And this is something that is very important, because one thing you don't want to do is obviously create a tokenized asset that is an illegal something or other, an illegal financial instrument. All right, let's move on to this last question here. Okay, so it actually says, so the last question from Sergio, it says that Umar would like to answer this question live. Does that just
He
typo
actually
here?
put the question on the chat.
Oh,
Do you
I
want me
see.
to? Do you want me to get the question? I have it in front of me.
I have the question. So,
Okay.
okay, and so we'll wrap up with this question. We only have a few minutes left. And so, what are the key considerations for implementing car tokenization projects, and how do these projects address challenges related to ownership and transferability in the automotive industry? Additionally, when do you think governments and administrations will be ready to embrace and regulate car tokenization on a broader scale, considering the potential impact of traditional vehicle registration and ownership and ownership systems? So let's answer the first part of this. What are the key considerations for implementing car tokenization projects, and how do these projects address challenges related to ownership and trace? Like with many with many items where you basically have titles, you have to have something that can be enforced. So this is not just for cars. This is for say land deeds, right? So you can tokenize a land deed pretty easily, but the actual the technology behind it is pretty straightforward. But it's all about the legality of it. So okay, you have a tokenized land deed, right? Okay, you have it if you get into a land dispute. Is that land deed actually going to be the legal representation of the document, or is this just going to be a random token on a blockchain that nobody's going to care about? So that's where regulation comes in. That has to be a recognized asset. That has to be a recognized digital representation of the document. So that is one of the biggest considerations, is to get the state, the DMV, whoever is the regulatory body for the ownership, for the title of the car, to recognize that this title, the tokenized version of this title, is in fact a legitimate representation of the title. the other aspect of it is, say if you want to have fractional ownership of the title. Again, this is regulations. To create a fractional ownership of any asset is actually not that hard, but how do you enforce it? How is it enforced? That's what you have to really consider it. That is the challenge that you have to face. And really it's, how do you address it? It's I mean, the answer is in the question. You have to go to the regulator. You have to go to the DMV. You have to go you have to make it legal somehow. In some cases, it's going to be the actual agency just signing off on it and saying that, okay, this digital signature represents a legal copy of this, because in many cases they can create a legal copy of these particular items that can be digitized. And so this is actually something that we're pursuing in some jurisdictions, and that is trying to get the regulator to actually say, you don't have to issue the credential. All you have to do is you issue your credential the way you used to before. It can be paper, it can be localized electronic credential. We copy that credential onto our system. And you just say that this is, yes, we verify, we sign that this is a legal copy of this of this particular item. And so let's get to the last part here. We're kind of running out of time, but I'll get to it. Additionally, what do you think when do you think governments and administrations will be ready to embrace and regulate card tokenization on a broader scale, considering the potential impact on traditional vehicle registration and ownership systems? Difficult to say. Depends on the jurisdiction. I would imagine that actually emerging economies will have a faster pathway to this. Because again, that's where you can make the most impact the fastest. And I think probably Southeast Asia, Africa is going to be another one that's going to probably lead the way. I think can lead the way in the adoption of these digital credentials. And essentially, that's what it is: a digital credential. Eastern Europe, and hopefully after that, when these use cases have been proven in emerging markets, then the bigger markets will start embracing them. But these things take time, and we really have to be ready. We really have to be ready for spending the time in making these things happen. All right. Well, listen, guys, I really, really enjoyed this. This has been a wonderful session. Thank you to Let's Talk Cardano. Thank you to the Cardano Foundation for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to run this amazing amazing master's class. Of course, if you have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me on any socials, on Telegram, via email. As many of you know, I am very active on many of these mediums. Yeah, and until next time, thank you very much for watching, and have a good one.